Hey guys, I'm Angela and welcome back to Hobby Night. Today I want to talk about 5 tools I use every time I hobby. There are a lot of tools out there that we get to explore as hobbyists, but today I want to focus on 5 in particular that I use every time I'm working on a project. It also happens to be some of the tools that I get asked about the most online. Now, before we get into the main list, I have a 6th honorable mention, and that is a bit of advice. Do not skimp on your desk chair. This is something that you're going to be sitting in for a really long period of time. If you're anything like me, your desk chair might end up being the one that you use for your computer, that you also play board games in, as well as what you're hobbying in. So you're gonna be sitting in there for a very long period of time. So you wanna make sure you get something that's comfortable, that works really well for you, that supports your body well. I got one that really helped my back because the previous chair that I had was not great. I used to have a lot of lower back pain and now I don't. And I do not regret spending a little bit extra when I bought my hobby desk chair. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the main list. In the number 5 spot, I wanna talk about what brush I use because I get this question a whole lot. Now, I actually use a huge collection of different brushes. Here, look, see all these different brushes. There's a whole bunch of different styles in there, but the one that I use the most is actually a watercolor brush called Escoda Prado. This is a particular watercolor brush that is a sable synthetic bristle mix, and I really love it. I used these a lot when I was in college, doing comic book stuff, using them with inks, which are very similar to contrast paint and speed paints, which I've been using a lot of. So I find that these give me great control with those particular paint styles. Plus, they also just work really well with acrylics because most watercolor brushes in the art world are interchangeable with acrylic brushes. You can use them on both. Now, the other thing that I really like about these brushes over especially say Citadel brushes is that they last a really long time. I've had this particular set that I've been using. You've been seeing them in videos for a while, and I've been using them for over 6 months. They still have fine tips on them, and I don't actually feel like I need to replace them anytime soon. I could not say the same thing for Citadel brushes or even sometimes the Army Painter brushes. As much as I love working with those as well, these watercolor brushes just do wonders for me. So if you're looking to expand your collection, maybe try something a little bit new, check out some watercolor brushes. It's that time of the video where I interrupt to tell you about my Patreon and to let you know that we just added a Discord server which all tiers get access to. So if you're wanting a way to chat with me, share with me your projects, or just tell me what board games you're playing, definitely make sure to check the link below and check out my Patreon. At the number 4 spot, we're going to talk about the item that is my second most talked about thing or asked about thing online, and that is my hobby desk. Now, I specifically have a NORDEN IKEA desk, which happens to fold down. Both sides will actually fold and close down so that it becomes very compact, which is fantastic when you're in a small space like I am. I have used this table in so many different locations as I moved it around my apartment because it is so versatile and can be tucked away in places if I don't want it out, or I can leave it open like I have it and just have a continuously working space on there. And this table is actually pretty deep. It's 31 inches deep by about 5 feet long. And so it can support a good number of people. Chaos Cultist and I comfortably work at it with the 2 of us, with it butted up against the wall like we have it. But if it was pulled away from the wall, we've actually played board games with people at this desk, and there was at least 4 of us, I think, sitting at the table, and it was totally comfortable. Everybody was able to reach everything they needed to. I really like it. Plus, if you want a little bit of extra storage, this desk actually has it built into the center panel. It's got 3 drawers on either side. So again, if you don't have it butted up against the wall, you can actually use all 6 of them. But otherwise, I use it for a little bit of extra storage. If you have extra tools that maybe you don't use as often, but you want to keep them close by, it's a great place to have them. If you are upgrading your space or you're setting up a brand new space, you're in a small area, I would really recommend the NORDEN desk. For number 3, I want to talk about a glue that has changed my life. It is the TAMIYA Extra Thin Cement. If you've not heard of this before, don't worry, I hadn't heard about it until very recently as well. But this is something you can get from Japan. I found out about it because of some Gunpla channels that I follow, or not Gunpla actually, some Gundam channels that I follow. And it has changed my world because this glue, unlike say, Citadel glue or even the Zap-A-Gap brand, which just have these like obnoxious spouts that allows glue to get everywhere, and it can sometimes ruin the detail on my models or get stuck to my fingers and cause my fingers to stick to each other. The TAMIYA extra thin cement has a wonderful thin brush applicator, which has completely upgraded how I am gluing my models together. Now, this is a plastic glue specifically, so if you work with a lot of metal miniatures or resin miniatures, it may not be as useful to you, but if you build a lot of plastic models like I do, it's gonna be wonderful. It especially is helpful when you are working on a model that has some really delicate connection points, because you can get a much more controlled amount of glue on those connection points without overloading the model. Plus, if you have like a weird section where you have a little bit of a gap in when you because it doesn't get pressed together enough, like your model didn't get pressed together enough when you were gluing it, you can actually use the brush tip applicator, sort of glide it back in between that gap, repress it down, and then it's sealed and you just get really clean edges, and I absolutely love working with it. So it's completely upgraded how I have been building my models, and if you haven't used it yourself, I'd really recommend trying it. At number 2, I want to talk about paint handles. Now, I in particular really like the Redgrass Gaming 360-degree ergonomic handle. I was sent by Redgrass this particular handle actually like a year ago or so, and I use it so much, and the Chaos Cultists and I both like it so much that I had to go and buy a bunch more because we both were fighting over it and we needed more than one in the house. Now, the reason I like this is because, one, I really find the grip incredibly comfortable. I have a little bit of smaller hands, and even when I'm using the Citadel handle, which is a little bit chonkier and bulkier, it's really kind of uncomfortable after long periods of painting. But with this Redgrass Gaming handle, because it's a bit smaller and fits more comfortably into my hand, I can go for really long periods of time. Plus, the thing that I like about it probably the most is that these caps spin, which means while I'm painting, if I'm working on something that sort of wraps around my model, I can just with a flick of a finger spin that model around, keep painting, and not really disrupt my process. So I can get really at any angle I want to with this handle. And then there was something about it that I kind of hand waved when I first got it, going like, that's a cool feature, but it's really not that useful to me. And that is that this handle has a magnet in the bottom of it and sticks to any metal surface that's magnetic, which is incredibly useful because, one, they tend to give you this little magnetic strip that has an M3 sticky on the back that you can then put onto your desk, set your handle down onto it, and actually keep it in place when you're not working on it, which means that if you have cats like I do who like to get up on desks and knock things over, or if you're just clumsy like I am and like to knock things over, you are at less of a risk of actually damaging your model because you bumped the handle off of your desk. I have done that so many times in the past with a Citadel handle, and it's been super frustrating, especially when I'm mid-project. I break something and then I go, well, now I really don't want to finish painting this because I broke it. I can't tell you how many times I've done that, and this Redgrass Gaming handle has prevented me from doing it further. Plus, because of the magnet, I actually have a metal balcony outside my window, and when I'm spray priming stuff or varnishing things, I can just stick it onto this handle. I actually have this extra one here, which I always use for priming. That's why it's all white and everything. And I just put this outside on that metal balcony. It sticks, and I don't have to worry about the wind taking out my model while I allow them to air out, so that all of that stink from the aerosol isn't in my house. I'd really recommend checking these out if you haven't already. It's a very useful handle. At the number 1 spot, I want to talk about my Vortex mixer. This is the tool that I have purchased the most recently, but I have used every single time I've painted since I purchased it because it has absolutely changed how I've been able to mix my paints. Now, I like to work with contrast paints, as you guys know, and contrast paints separate a lot. Let me see if I can actually find one real quick. That's pretty separated. So like this paint is incredibly separated. This happens all the time, and most of the time you can do an okay job mixing them together by hand, but certain colors like Apothecary White, Militarum Green, or even the dreaded ultramarine blue really are stubborn, and with a little bit of hand mixing, they don't actually fully mix together, which means you're not getting the proper consistency or color tone out of your paints, which is really frustrating when you're painting, especially if you're batch painting and you want them all to be a consistent color. So the Vortex mixer has absolutely fixed that problem for me, because now when I use this thing, it just mixes the paint really, really thoroughly. I'm getting consistent colors, I'm getting great fluid motions out of this paint, and I'm just really loving the results I'm getting by using the Vortex mixer. Now, one of the things that I actually am especially happy to have this thing for is not just mixing my contrast paints, but also for mixing my varnishes and my primers. While I don't mind handshaking them, and I still do obviously before I use them immediately, I do actually put them on my Vortex mixer going forward and actually use this to help shake them together. I just feel like then I'm getting a much better consistency, and it's really improved how my varnishes and primers have come out of the can. If you don't have one of these, or you have a little bit extra money to splurge on one, I'd really recommend it because it's completely changed my painting experience. All right, that has been the 5 tools that I use for every project. I really do use each of these every time I'm working on a new project, and I hope that this has been helpful for you, maybe guiding you on some future purchases that you want to make when you're upgrading your own space, or just adding to your own collection of tools that you have to work with. I have been Angela, you have been watching Hobby Night, and before I head out, I want to do one of 2 things. First, I want to remind you that I am going to win the Royal Jamble this Saturday over on the Wrestle Talk podcast as we stream alongside the Royal Rumble, because I've gotten my numbers picked out for me, and I actually think I have a maybe decent chance of being in it, or at least like possibly winning. I don't know, I'm pretty excited. I hope you guys will be there to watch along with me. Now, before I do leave officially, we're gonna thank my patrons for supporting us and allowing content like this to continue to be made. You guys are awesome, and I've enjoyed really talking with you guys on Discord and sharing our projects together. In the meantime, I've been Angela, you've been watching Hobby Night, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!